The sun had barely risen over the battlefield, but the air was already heavy with the metallic tang of blood and the acrid smoke of burning villages. The ground was littered with the bodies of men who had fought valiantly, some with swords still clutched in stiffening hands, others with arrows protruding from their chests. Mehmet, a young soldier in the Ottoman army, walked among them with a detached sense of duty, though deep inside, a flicker of unease gnawed at him. He had grown up hearing stories of battles, of honor and glory, yet what he now saw was the unfiltered reality of conquest, a reality that extended far beyond the men who had fallen in combat. Among the casualties of war, however, it was not only the men who suffered. The women left behind, the wives of these defeated warriors, faced fates far more harrowing than death. In the Ottoman strategy, crushing the men alone was insufficient. Entire communities were to be subdued, their spirits broken, their families torn apart. The women became instruments in this deliberate strategy of domination. Captured villages bore witness to their suffering, but the accounts were often whispered, left unrecorded in official chronicles that glorified victories while silencing the screams of the conquered. Fatima, a young mother of 3, had been married only a few years when the Ottoman forces stormed her village. She had watched her husband fall during the final hours of resistance, his body lying motionless on the battlefield, and for a fleeting moment, she had thought that his sacrifice might allow her and her children to escape. That hope was cruelly extinguished when soldiers dragged her from the burning home, ignoring her pleas, ignoring the children clinging to her skirts. Her neighbors were taken in the same manner, and in a single day, entire families were uprooted, stripped of their homes, their land, and their dignity. The captives were separated, their fates assigned by the officers in charge. Some women were sent to distant cities, where they were sold in bustling markets to strangers who treated them as commodities rather than human beings. Others were forced into harems, where their lives were controlled by powerful men who regarded them as trophies of conquest rather than individuals with their own agency. The Ottoman system was methodical in its cruelty, ensuring that fear and humiliation spread beyond the battlefield, infecting entire regions with a sense of hopelessness. The women, who had once been respected within their communities, became symbols of utter domination, their suffering a warning to those who might resist Ottoman expansion. Fatima's experience was a harrowing testament to this system. Sold to a wealthy merchant in a distant city, she found herself thrust into a world of strict hierarchies and constant surveillance. Her days became a ceaseless cycle of labor, fetching water, cleaning floors, tending to the children of her captor, all while suppressing the grief and rage that threatened to consume her. Her nights were even worse, spent in fear of the unknown, aware that at any moment, her life could be further controlled or violated. She was surrounded by others like her, women from villages far and wide who shared stories of loss, exile, and humiliation, each narrative echoing the same brutal pattern. In this network of suffering, small alliances formed, friendships born out of shared trauma, and together they clung to the fragile hope that survival itself was an act of defiance. The psychological torment inflicted upon these women was deliberate and systematic. By tearing apart families, the Ottomans ensured that resistance would be difficult to maintain, and that cultural continuity would be threatened. The women were stripped of their traditional roles as mothers, wives, and community members, replaced by roles that served the conqueror's interests. Mourning rituals were forbidden, burial rites denied, and the emotional scars deepened by the awareness that their plight was part of a larger strategy, designed to demonstrate the futility of rebellion. The fear of humiliation and the constant reminder of their loss became weapons as sharp as any sword, cutting deep into the psyche of the conquered. Fatima, despite her suffering, found moments of quiet rebellion. She whispered prayers for her children, taught them stories of their homeland, and shared lessons of survival and resilience. In these small acts, she preserved a part of herself, refusing to let the conquerors claim her identity entirely. It was a delicate balance, living under oppression yet maintaining the spirit of resistance. Many women in similar circumstances found solace in these small acts of courage, their resilience an unrecorded but undeniable testament to the human spirit's capacity to endure even in the darkest of times. The social consequences of these acts of cruelty were profound. Villages that had once been vibrant communities of shared labor, celebration, and culture were left fragmented, with survivors scattered or enslaved. The men who survived the initial battles often returned to find their homes empty, their families gone, their social structures dismantled. Those who tried to resist afterward faced the dual challenge of fighting both an external oppressor and the deep psychological scars left by the capture and exploitation of their loved ones. The Ottomans, Deliberate targeting of women in these campaigns was therefore not merely incidental but a strategic form of warfare designed to secure long-term dominance. Even centuries later, the legacy of these acts remains a chilling reminder of the human cost of conquest. History often celebrates battles, strategies, and leaders, but the silent suffering of women like Fatima is rarely memorialized. Their stories, carried only in whispers or fragmented accounts, reveal the depths of cruelty that war can unleash, and the resilience that endures even when hope seems all but lost. The fate of these women was far worse than death, for it was not only their physical freedom that was taken but also their autonomy, dignity, and the futures they might have known. In the shadow of victorious armies, their suffering stands as an enduring testament to the hidden atrocities of history, a story of human endurance and sorrow that refuses to be forgotten. Aden had always believed that her life would follow a predictable pattern, shaped by family, community, and the quiet rhythms of village life. She had grown up watching her father till the fields, her mother care for the household, and the village elders gather to share stories of past heroes and local legends. But all of that changed the moment the Ottoman army arrived. Their approach had been swift, almost imperceptible at first, but the devastation that followed was immediate and absolute. Her husband, a brave warrior known throughout the village for his courage, fought with everything he had, yet he was overwhelmed. The sight of him falling to the enemy's sword, his life extinguished in an instant, was something Aden would never forget. She had wanted to shield their children, but there was nothing she could do. The soldiers took no time in asserting control over the village. Women and children were gathered, herded like livestock into the central square. Their possessions were seized, homes looted, and the men who survived were executed or marched away as prisoners. The atmosphere was suffused with terror, and the air was thick with smoke from burning houses. Aden felt a cold, sinking realization that the worst was yet to come. The soldiers began separating the women from their children and friends. The young and strong were chosen for servitude or sale, older women were sent to clean and maintain the soldiers' quarters, and children were often taken as hostages or raised in distant lands under strict supervision. Families were torn apart so completely that even the memory of their previous lives felt like a distant dream. Aden was chosen along with several other women and forced into a caravan bound for the distant city of Edirne. The journey itself was harrowing. The captives were given little food, and many fell ill during the long trek, yet there was no mercy. Women who could not keep pace were beaten or abandoned along the way, left to die in the wilderness. Each night, Aden huddled with her children, trying to shield them from the horror around them, whispering prayers she barely remembered from childhood. Her thoughts were a chaotic mix of grief, fear, and anger. She knew that survival alone would not be enough. Her spirit and her children's sense of identity had to be preserved, even if it meant holding on to memories that could not be shared aloud. Upon reaching the city, Aden and the other women were taken to a sprawling marketplace where they were displayed like goods, examined by strangers who had no regard for their humanity. Some were purchased immediately, others were forced into harems or households where their lives would be dominated by strict rules and constant scrutiny. Aden herself was bought by a wealthy merchant, a man known for his influence and wealth. Her new home was luxurious compared to the squalor she had known in the village, yet it was a gilded cage. Every action, every word, every glance was scrutinized. The merchant saw her as a prize, a symbol of conquest, and made it clear that her opinions, desires, and past life had no place here. The mental and emotional strain of such captivity was immense. Aden quickly realized that despair could be fatal. Loss of will often led to illness or abuse. She had to learn to navigate the complex hierarchy of the household, earning favor where possible, avoiding anger, and finding tiny ways to preserve her dignity. She became an expert at hiding her tears, masking fear with a composed exterior, and offering gestures of obedience that concealed her inner defiance. Every encounter with her captor reminded her that she had no control over her fate, and yet, Aden found small moments of resistance. She secretly taught her children about their heritage, telling them stories of their father and the village he had defended. She whispered prayers at night and spoke to other women in quiet tones, forming a network of silent solidarity. Despite her best efforts to adapt, the sense of loss was ever present. Her village, once alive with festivals, communal labor, and laughter, existed now only in memory. Friends and relatives had been scattered or killed, and the social structures that had given meaning to her life were destroyed. The Ottomans' systematic targeting of women ensured that the community itself could not recover. By breaking families, the conquerors left behind a landscape of survivors haunted by trauma, a population whose sense of identity was challenged by constant displacement and fear. The psychological impact of this cruelty was as severe as the physical hardships. Women like Aden were left to reconcile the knowledge of their captivity with the need to survive and care for their children under conditions they had never imagined. Aden's story illustrates how war and conquest extend far beyond the battlefield. The Ottomans' actions were not merely about defeating armies, they were about destroying the very fabric of society. Women were taken not only for labor or pleasure but as instruments of power, their suffering a calculated measure to suppress resistance. By making examples of the conquered women, the Ottomans instilled fear in those who remained free. The trauma endured by Aden and countless others was designed to resonate across generations, a dark legacy that served as a warning. Defiance would be met not just with death but with the obliteration of family, culture, and personal autonomy. Over time, Aden began to accept the reality of her life, though never fully submitting to it in spirit. Survival required compromises, yet her inner life remained a realm of freedom she could not take away. She cultivated strength from memories, from whispered prayers, from the knowledge that one day, perhaps, the stories of her people could endure even if the land itself had been conquered. The resilience of women like her demonstrates a remarkable capacity for endurance in the face of systemic cruelty. Though history often celebrates generals and victories, it is in the quiet defiance and perseverance of women such as Aden where the true testament to human strength can be found. Her experience was mirrored in countless other stories across the empire. Each village that fell to Ottoman conquest produced women who endured forced relocation, sexual exploitation, and enslavement, yet continued to find ways to resist in secret. Some formed bonds with fellow captives, sharing knowledge, religious beliefs, and traditions. Others clung to memories of their families, teaching children the names of their ancestors, the stories of their homes, and the values that had once guided their communities. These acts of quiet rebellion ensured that culture and memory were preserved, even under circumstances designed to erase them. Aden's life, and the lives of so many others, serves as a sobering reminder of the profound human cost of war. The fate of the wives of defeated warriors was far worse than death. It encompassed the destruction of identity, the stripping away of autonomy, and the forced adaptation to a world where freedom was a distant memory. The cruelty was not only physical but psychological, a deliberate attempt to erase the spirit of an entire people. And yet, in the endurance, in the whispered prayers, in the stories shared under breath, there remained a spark of hope and defiance that could not be extinguished. History may remember the battles, the strategies, and the rulers, but the courage and resilience of these women endure in the shadows, a testament to the indomitable strength of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable suffering.